So today's topic is talking to our children about their bodies and sexual health, specifically our children with developmental disabilities. This is in line with a theme that every student should and can feel joy, wellness, and wholeness. So Lisa and I presenting. I'm Katie. We are from TDSB's Occupational Therapy and Physiotherapy Services. We both have over 20 years of experience as clinicians and have been supporting students with developmental disabilities in TDSB for the last 7 years. So if you have any questions, you could type in the chat and we'll address it at the end. But if there's one person, you could also just chime in. We'll have a conversation. So for today's land acknowledgement, are you sharing screen?
We'll share. Yeah.
I'll just give you a sec there. So for the land acknowledgement, you can actually move on to the next slide, Lisa. We're going to highlight the teachings of David Newhouse. He's the director of the Cheney Wenjack School for Indigenous Studies at Trent University. He states that one of the Anishinaabe teachings tells of the ways in which sex is introduced into the world. Men and women lived separately for a long time. The creator, in his effort to increase the population of humans, made sex pleasurable so that men and women could desire it, and hence, through acting upon their desires, increase the population. Sex was to be an act of pleasure. Traditional Aboriginal societies have believed that sexuality was powerful. It was awakened at puberty, and in many societies are a series of rites and rituals for youths, which were designed to instill within an individual an understanding of the nature of this power and the way in which the power was to be harnessed and used. Sexuality as a gift, a powerful gift that is to be respected. So there's much we all can learn from the Aboriginal societies. So sex, as Planned Parenthood quotes, is perhaps the only area of human life where some believe ignorance is preferable to knowledge. So talking about our bodies, puberty, and sex is hard for many people, which makes it even more important to address it in today's time together. So first off, teaching our students, your children, about their bodies and sexual health is in the Ontario Health and Physical Education curriculum. All students are entitled to this learning, regardless of their strengths and needs and abilities. Like any other subject, if our students have an IEP and requires extra support, we accommodate or modify the curriculum so that the material is made accessible to our students. So specifically for students with developmental disabilities, it may look like an accommodation. So a lot of repetition, using visual aids, using the routine of the classroom to support this learning, or we may modify the curriculum, learning about our body parts, private parts, consent, healthy relationships, at the developmental level of your child. So many people hesitate to approach the topic of bodies and sex with individuals with developmental disabilities because of their own discomfort with the topic and or because of their views on sexuality for people with developmental disabilities. Many people believe that individuals with developmental disabilities are asexual, not interested in sexuality at all, or hypersexual, deviant, always seeking sexual gratification, and nefarious. Sexual practices, especially with respect to persons with developmental disabilities, trouble society's restrictive sexual norms. Many people with disabilities have their sexualities denied and ignored, and their sexual pleasures, desires, and practices considered both inappropriate and unnecessary. These are all ableist views. So why is it important to teach our students, your children with developmental disabilities, about their bodies? So all people experience physical, social, and emotional changes throughout their lives. Most children and youth with intellectual and or developmental disabilities miss out on sexual education in schools, community, and within their home environment. Children and youth have gaps in knowledge and understanding around puberty and developing fulfilling relationships specific to their individual. Difficulties include lack of familiarity in regards to vocabulary for concepts of emotion, body parts terminology, and defining comfortable personal and physical boundaries. Researchers on incarcerated sexual predators on what deterred them from targeting vulnerable children pointed out that they steered away from children who had the language of body parts and knew to say no. This indicates that they had adults in their lives who spoke to them about this. Therefore, teaching our children about their bodies and sexuality decreases their vulnerability. So studies indicate that people with developmental disabilities are 4 to 10 times more likely to have acts of violence committed against them. Children with intellectual impairments appear to be among the most vulnerable, with 4.6 times the risk of sexual violence than their non-disabled peers. Through a careful systemic review and meta-analysis of studies on sexual abuse in adults with intellectual disabilities, this study shows that 1 in 3 adults with this condition is a victim of sexual abuse as an adult. There isn't a great deal of research to corroborate this, but common sense would also dictate that vulnerability also includes our young people potentially being victims because of their own behaviors. So for example, if they're touching themselves on the subway, then they will get involved with the legal system. So the question is whether our children isn't whether our children will learn about sexuality. The question is what and how do we want them to learn? But we have an opportunity here to teach them so much more than that. We have an opportunity to teach them about their bodies, body safety, gender expression, body image, relationship with others, and how we grow and change over the years. So let's hear directly from people with intellectual disabilities and what they say in their own words.
Sex Ed for people with IDD. Welcome!
Why do we have to make a video about sex ed for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
When the other kids had sex education, I had to go somewhere else.
Other kids got to learn about birth control and condoms and how to be parents, and all anyone ever told me was don't have sex.
My parents had a big discussion about sex with my sister who doesn't have a disability, but when I was growing up, nobody said anything to me.
There are a lot of myths of sexuality and people with disabilities.
Some people feel people with disabilities aren't sexual and that we don't need sex education at all.
But that's not true.
People also say people with disabilities are too sexual or hypersexual. If they start talking to us about sex, we're just gonna go right out and start having sex all over the place.
That's not true either.
Other folks think people with IDD don't have the same variety of sexual and gender identity.
We do, and we shouldn't ignore that.
These myths is how people with disabilities are portrayed in the media.
So welcome to our sex ed video for and by people with IDD.
It has different parts, you can skip around, you can watch from beginning to end, it's up to you.
Produced by the National Council on Independent Living and Rooted in Rights, with support from the WITH Foundation.
So why don't we talk to our kids about sexuality? If we're all convinced in the value of teaching our students, your children, about their bodies and sexuality, where do we start? Why is it so hard? Some people are really nervous because they think they give permission to the students. Are all of our upbringings different? Perhaps our childhood messages were very negative. And other reasons could be just our own nervousness, feeling like we may do it wrong. Although it's hard to think about our children as having sexual lives, it is a common goal by most parents that they hope their children grow up to be sexually healthy adults. Sexuality is an innate part of everyone. We need to come from a place of humility. We try our best, we make mistakes, and we can admit it and change as we learn to. So you already know how to teach your children about their bodies and sexual health. It's just like how we teach them anything else, with lots of time, patience, repetition, modeling, practice, and reinforcement. And at this time, I'm gonna pass the time to Lisa.
Thank you, Katie. So where do we start? We can start by teaching students the right language. Even very young children can understand that there's often more than one word for a body part. For example, head, we can call it noggin, melon, for the bum, tushy, seat, rear. Families use lots of different words for body parts, and that is fine. Use what is comfortable for your family. But for safety reasons, it is important that children also know the common words to be used with non-family adults, with doctors, teachers, babysitters, in case they need to ask for help with that body part. Knowledge of body part names also allows children the ability to talk to adults about possible body issues, for example, itchiness, pain, and sexual interference. Teaching children the names of all of their body parts allows them to take ownership over all parts of their body. This allows children more power over their bodies, as body knowledge has been proven to be a deterrent to sexual interference. Body ownership and self-esteem are so important for our children. We need to teach our children to feel good about their body, that bodies come in many different shapes and sizes, unique to that person. Also, respect for boundaries. For example, you don't have to hug or kiss grandma if you don't want to, or I will stop tickling you now because you have said no, and I respect that. Safety is key. We need to prepare our children for images, messages, or situations that they will eventually experience. We cannot necessarily control what they may see, for example, when they are with peers or online. When we think about unsafe situations at school, for instance, school-age children will eventually use the group washrooms without supervision. Some children may also require extra assistance with hygiene, washroom activities. They need to know the ways to stand up for themselves and for their own safety. Privacy and social cues. It can be difficult to expect your students with intellectual developmental disabilities to understand privacy and social cues when children do not get their own privacy for toileting activities. Therefore, these social cues will need to be explained to them, likely repeatedly explained to them. Self-tutoring for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities can be described similar to nose picking. Many people do both of these activities, but adults know to do this in private. Teaching the concept of public and private activities and places are important for all people, but especially for our vulnerable students. I'm going to play this video to help kids learn that bodies are private on YouTube by Amazed Parents. Please note that in the video, it does name the male and female private body parts and talk about touching those body parts when and where it's socially accepted.
Pass it, Squeaks! Whoa! Watch it! You almost hit me in the pee-pee!
What's so funny, you two?
He said pee-pee.
Do you notice that when you say pee-pee, you giggle, but when you say penis, you say it in a serious voice?
I never noticed that before.
Some children and adults feel uncomfortable when they talk about their private parts, so they make up cute or funny names for them.
What's one for a girl's private parts?
Vajayjay! But what does Scoops mean when he says vajayjay?
He means vulva.
That's right, Kayla. It's important to use the proper words for our private parts.
Why?
Because our private parts are just as amazing as our hearts, lungs, brains, or any other of our amazing body parts.
But our hearts pump blood, our lungs breathe, and our brains think.
All our private parts do is pee! That's not entirely true, Scoops. It is true that a person pees or urinates through a hole called the urethra in the penis.
Does everyone have a urethra?
They do. It can be harder to see, but girls have a tiny hole in the front of the vulva where urine comes out from their urethra. Urination is actually very important. It helps us get rid of waste, stuff our body doesn't need.
Hey, how come my penis gets big sometimes and points up in the air?
That's called an erection.
Sometimes I touch my penis because it feels nice. Is that okay?
Sometimes, when I'm in my bath or when Mom puts me to bed, I touch my vulva.
You have a clitoris there, Kayla. And yes, it's okay to touch your clitoris. And Keith, it's okay to touch your penis. But have you ever noticed that older kids and grown-ups don't touch their private parts in public?
They don't?
That's right, Keith. It's okay to touch yourself and see how different body parts feel, but it's best to only do it in private.
Well, if private parts are so special, why do you cover them up?
Because they are private, silly.
That's right, Kayla, because they are private.
Hey, Squeaks, pass it. Wait. Okay, I'm ready.
Pass it, Squeaks.
Teaching our children and youth about bodily autonomy is also part of teaching them safety. They have control over their own bodies and can say no if they feel uncomfortable. Consent is so important for our kids. You can watch these videos together, ask questions, role play, practice, or
Consent for kids. This is you. Okay, it doesn't look exactly like you, but let's say it's you. This is your body, and you get to decide what you do with your body. No one else is entitled to tell you what to do with your body. Not your friends, not strangers, not adults you know. No one is entitled to decide what you do with your body, except you. That's called bodily autonomy, by the way. And that's what consent is all about. Everyone is different. Some people love to hug, and some people hate hugs. And each person gets to decide what they're comfortable with. Can a hug-loving person just start hugging someone at random? Nope. They need consent.
again, watch these videos together with your children, ask questions, and role play. We cannot discuss bodies and sexuality without creating a space for the 2S LGBTQ+ community. There has been a lack of consideration given to intersectionality around a disability and gender identity and sexual orientation. It is interesting to note that some preliminary research suggests that individuals with autism may be more likely to experience gender fluidity. Here are some ways we can be more inclusive and create a safe space for all students. Make space to talk about the 2S LGBTQ+ experience. For example, this could be the experience of someone you care about. Use trans-inclusive terms such as people with a uterus or people with a penis, and also gender pronouns. Differentiate between sex and gender. Use the terms female and male body versus men and women's body. As sex refers to a person's physical characteristics at birth, whereas gender encompasses a person's identities, expressions, and societal roles. If you're not sure where to start or how to have these conversations, we have included resources that we will share at the end of the presentation. At the end of the day, we want to position ourselves as askable adults. Parents and educators desire to be someone that their children or student can look to for guidance and answers. Honesty is the key. Even if you do not know an answer to a question or do not want to answer a question, be honest about that. Teaching sexuality is an opportunity to teach life skills, communication, body ownership, values, self-esteem, privacy, boundaries, safety, and pleasure. Sexual health education isn't about one talk. It's ongoing and requires a team approach. We need to use a building block approach, build on skills throughout our lifespan. Our students' children will build skills, and we as adults will also build skills along the way. The right time to talk about this is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Everyone has the skills to become an askable adult. You do not have to be an expert. The 5-point plan, when answering our children's questions, include these 5 points. 1, encourage self-esteem. Say, that's a great question when they ask a question. 2, ask back. Clarify with your child what they're actually asking. What do you mean by that? Are you asking? 3, stick to the facts. A true answer, developmentally appropriate to their level. Give small bits of information. See if they want more. 4, share values. You could say, in our family, we value, and talk about what you value. What are your values? And 5, empower the student by reminding them of their personal responsibility for lifelong health learning. So here are some examples of questions that's being asked. Is it okay to touch your genitals? And your answer could be, I'm glad someone asked this question because a lot of students wonder about this. This taps into their self-esteem because you're valuing their question. 2, just curious, why are you asking about genitals? Where did you hear about this? So this is asking back. The answer you get may give you some context and insight on your child's understanding of the topic. Number 3, many young people and adults do this. It cannot hurt you. Touching the privates or genitals is called self-pleasuring or masturbation. So that is providing facts. 4, some people, cultures, and religions teach that touching the genitals for pleasure is wrong, and some believe it is okay. This is talking about your values. And then number 5, touching your genitals is a private activity that may make a person feel good. It should be done only in a private place like a bedroom, and hands should always be washed afterwards. This is talking about the responsibility. So keep this 5-point plan in mind when you talk to your children. So we do have put together a list of great resources. If this list is overwhelming, we would suggest you start by checking out the videos from Amaze Parents. There are a lot of videos on YouTube from them.
I put posted the list up on the chat.
Thank you, Katie. And then this is actually OTPT website. For more information about OTPT services, please visit our OTPT website. On the website, you will find lots of resources related to the areas we support in school, such as fine motor, gross motor, sensory needs. On the OTPT website, we also have links to community resources. Additionally, on the OTPT website, you can find information on all previous parent-guardian virtual information sessions with topics such as picky eating, sleep, and toileting. And if you have a phone, you can scan the QR code. And then for information on upcoming parent sessions offered by the OTPT services, please follow us on our various social media platforms, including X, Instagram, and Threads. You can find us at TDSB_OTPT. And thank you so much. And I'll stop sharing. Thank you so much for attending. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. So I don't have kids of my own, but I'm a teacher candidate in my last year, so I'll be a teacher in September, hopefully.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. And I just wonder, I really like the video of helping kids learn about their bodies and how they're private and using the words and even, taking away some of the like social shame that's often there about like touching them and like just introducing that at a young age. And I wonder, like as a teacher, how do you feel like that would change doing it with your own kid versus like if a student came and talked to you or you're doing it in a health class?
Is your question like teaching it at home versus teaching at school? Is that your question?
Yeah, like I'm curious as to kind of like what boundaries you feel are appropriate. Like I would love, like personally, I would love to teach about, that like show that exact video in my class and be like, this is, some cultures think it is okay to touch yourself and like to explore your body, but that's a private thing. You do it in private.
Yeah,
And do you
so
feel like, yeah.
that's a great question. First of all, for sure, this topic should be talked about at home and also at school. At home for sure, because as parents, I'm a parent, I want to be the one teaching my children about these important things. But at school, it actually is part of the Ontario curriculum. So it actually will be taught to all our children. But I guess for us, our focus was on children with developmental disabilities because a lot of times they're on an alternative curriculum. And that's why they sort of get, this topic sort of gets missed. That's it's very concrete and you have to follow the curriculum. But even so, for this topic specifically, like you alluded to, it is very, the values are very different. Our society is so different and there's such a range. So even within the regular stream, it is being taught, but the parents are always notified and they always have that option of opting out. So that's sort of the process in the regular stream. Any notes, Lisa?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it well. It's very important topic for home and school, but yes, the parents do have the choice to opt out. Yeah.
Yeah, but once they've opted in and you're the teacher in that classroom, following what's on the curriculum, you absolutely can talk about private and public, and those videos are probably would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you for sharing. It was really educational. Good stuff to think about, there's a lot of ableism in the world, and so it's always nice to have opportunities to reflect and learn more and think about, my own prejudices and, be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. And yeah, so really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
And about the list of resources, would you guys be comfortable with me sharing that with my cohort? Like if I send on the sheet that you send?
Yeah, absolutely. Please
For
do.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
tell
so
them
much.
about this specific
Yeah.
topic. Yeah, for students with
So important.
disabilities, it's still so worthwhile and actually even more important to teach them about their bodies because they are
Yeah.
vulnerable. And that's why we're here. We just wanted to spread that
Absolutely.
news.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have a health course because we had physical education, like more gym side of it this semester, but next semester we'll have health, and I'll be sure to share this.
Oh.
Maybe even if you guys are okay, like the recording is up on YouTube, maybe I'll share that as well
Yeah.
so people can watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Enjoy
you.
the conference. I hope you
Yeah,
get other
enjoy.
really
Have a
great
good
talks.
weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We'll just stick around here for a couple more minutes. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop the recording.